Right. Right.
Next up, we have Matthew, who's also coming from the YouTube here at
Yep.
University of Maryland.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My presentation will kind of show everything that has been discussed this far in practice, connection between the decentralized web, geospatial science, and open science. And we've created this project called the Web3 Geospatial Dashboard, which addresses some of the questions that arise when interfacing with IPFS and the whole decentralized web ecosystem. So for a quick agenda, I'll start off with a quick DWeb refresher, mainly the key concepts that work behind the scenes of this project, the current data sharing landscape and what it looks like when we introduce IPFS, CIDs, all that jazz into the mix, and some problems and common questions that may arise when you transition to using the decentralized web and how we can address it using projects such as this dashboard and where we're headed moving forward. So first and foremost, IPFS is a decentralized way and approach to data storage. Instead of having a central authority to retrieve data from, which is a single point of failure, everything is now peer-to-peer. And Volker had a really good presentation yesterday about how content is addressed. Filecoin is built on IPFS and it adds tokenomics so that when you interact and store or retrieve your data, you can pay different nodes and different actors within the network to actually have that happen. And it curates a competition in the ecosystem because nodes will try to offer you the best rate for storing and retrieving your data. And this is all managed autonomously through smart contracts. So currently, if I want to send data to anybody, I would typically send them credentials to access some sort of AWS bucket, or I'd send them a URL. And it tells you a lot about the data that you're going to be receiving. You can address the question, where's this data coming from, by looking at the URL. Sometimes the URL includes the name of the file type, maybe even the size. But if we add IPFS to the mix, I'll send you a CID. And for many people here who are new to this whole ecosystem, if I send you a string of text, you might have a lot of questions. Where is this data coming from? What is the data type? What exactly is this data? And that string, that CID is actually just hello world. And as people start sending more and more information, the list of CIDs gets longer. And we need to address questions such as, what is the CID associated with? And with IPFS, the state of data comes into question. Where's my data pinned? How many copies are in circulation within the network? And if you're using Filecoin, you also are probably interested in the state of contracts. When do deals expire? Has a deal been violated, etc.? And this is where the dashboard comes into play. We want to visualize geospatial data stored on IPFS and Filecoin, and we use a map for that. And we also address the unanswered questions through various features that are incorporated with the dashboard that I'll showcase later. And we also enable easy data interaction, a lot easier than how you'd probably traditionally fetch data from, say, NASA or Kaggle or other platforms. And we've built this using a flexible architecture because since a lot of this technology is novel and still being worked on, things might change, and we want to be robust to that. And as I said earlier, we're kind of connecting the dots between the three big circles. So first and foremost, with the dashboard, for context, we have Landsat 9 scenes stored on IPFS and Filecoin, and we've rendered these bounding boxes associated with each of the satellite imagery tiles that if you click on them, you'd get information such as the CID, the file name, the path row tuple, and other high-level metadata information about the satellite imagery. And we also have pop-ups that have additional buttons that allow you to interact with the data more. And in this GIF here, I'm searching for 4600 River Road, where we're at. And as you can see, not sure if it's very visible there, but the tile gets highlighted blue. And if I click on it, I get that high-level information. And it also fetches how many nodes have that data pinned, which addresses the question, how many nodes within Filecoin or IPFS actually have my data stored. Another key concept is data pinning. And if you're interested in a particular CID or a particular content, you can pin the data. So whatever node or computer that you're running would also serve it to others participating in the network. And we can easily do this through the pin to local button. And as you can see, a new image, GeoTIFF, shows up within this file explorer. And we also enable very easy data retrieval and integration. And this is really useful for those who are conducting research or writing programs that rely on this data. So typically, if I want to get data from NASA Earth data, I'd have to import 3 libraries, specify my username and password, put in a URL, create a password manager for whatever reason, create a cookie jar, import a URL parser, so on and so forth. And that's a hassle. Now, with a dashboard, I can just click on a scene, click more, copy and paste this code. We also have a Python client. I should have said that earlier. And then I can just copy and paste these lines, create a client, get the CID. And now, let's see if that works.
You need one more.
Oh, sorry about that. There you go. I can access my data into a Jupyter notebook or a Python program seamlessly, as if it was already stored on my device, or as if I did the 50 plus lines of code that NASA has on their documentation. Sorry, let me find where I'm at. Yeah, and so we also have, I linked here a blog post in a Jupyter notebook that actually shows how this plays nicely into different geospatial workflows and retrieving data within a Jupyter notebook. Feel free to read it. And I only have one bullet point because there's not a lot of red tape to access your data when using IPFS. You don't need the authentication. You don't need to sign up for any services. You don't need to actually go to some sort of platform to filter through the data and find something that you want. And how exactly does this work? Well, behind the scenes, we had a Stack API that had all of the metadata, the high-level metadata, such as the names, the path row tuples of all the satellite imagery. And we fetched some of that data to create a new GeoJSON, which is a dictionary enriched with the CIDs that are associated with each of the tiles on IPFS. And we have Mapbox render that on the front end. And something that I haven't shown yet is we also have a Chrome extension that runs in the background. So I don't have to just interact with the IPFS node running on my device. Right now it's pointed to localhost, but if I want to interact with some other IPFS node remotely, I can do that here and view the files that I have pinned. I can write to different directories if I want to partition a data set, say for research purposes. And this is significant because it's a relatively novel method to managing data within the IPFS ecosystem. Maps are not new, but this is very different than the traditional sending a list of CIDs to someone or sending a CSV of CIDs to someone. And it lowers the barrier for entry to those unfamiliar with the scene. And this is something that was expressed as valuable by Anna. And she said that we need to minimize the disparity between those sharing the data and those accessing the data. And there's a huge learning curve to using IPFS, and tools like this makes it more inviting and easier for people to actually join the environment. So where we're expanding, we're going to be integrating new tools that have been developed for Filecoin and IPFS, such as Lassi, add new features, obviously, that support GIS user experience. And a new feature that we've recently added is the ability to point this dashboard to other GeoJSONs, aside from the one that I just showed, the continental United States. So anybody else can manipulate and view their data through the dashboard, assuming it's enriched with CID content. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. There are reasons why agencies want use registers. They want to track how they got use.
Right.
People are using stats. So if you try to circumvent, well, I'm not sure. So is a IDFS can provide some kind of aggregated information. Ideally.
Right. There are some measures in place. I'm not too sure about all of them, but for example, the IPFS node that I have running comes with an interface and it gives me metrics about the inbound connections and the outbound connections, and that might be valuable to see, oh, how in demand some particular content is within my node. Yes.
You know, that you
For sure, yeah. I think that'd be useful, especially from an organization standpoint. If you're a data broker, that'd be useful. But for purposes of research, where you're mainly interested in the data and retrieving it, that might not be as useful. Thank you. Yes.